And we're going to talk about this. We're going to answer a question. What is a sensitivity reading? I had never heard this term until I received an email a couple days ago. And this email from someone in the industry included a video, and we're going to watch part of it. So this was source screen recorded this past Sunday, and the person sent this through. It's not like it's an email, so their identity could not be tracked. Okay. And this person wanted me to see this email. This video. This video is from a writers community called Roadmap Writers. These are a group of young writers that are mentoring new up and coming young writers. The person who sent this to me made sure that I knew that the advice that was being given to the up and coming writers from these are low level, entry level writers with barely any credits, all in a writers group, giving advice to young up and coming writers. And the advice they're giving gave the person who is in the industry pause, that the new people being mentored are being mentored by people that don't know what they're talking about, and had major concerns about this, which led to the definition of a sensitivity reading. I'm going to present this. This is a video file, and we're going to look at this. I'm going to have to put my headphones on to share the audio here. The first part is introductions. We can go through that just to see who this is.
And I'm just going to go down the list. Let's promote Jess. And there's Martin. There's Michelle. And where'd you go, Parker? I saw you, and then you went away.
Okay, so
Parker.
So they're gathering up everybody for this Zoom call where they're going to explain what a sensitivity reading is. One guy's in his car. They're about to give their credits and talk about.
Hello.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us. And again, as I said, you all consented to like hanging out with me for an hour to an hour and a half. So bless you. And I'm sorry. But all right. So the writers don't care who I am. I'm just here to kind of facilitate questions. But I don't know if they've had the chance of meeting all of you. So I'm going to have you all go around and introduce yourself. And for this one, I'll like call on you. But whenever we're asking questions, I'll just pose the question and then we'll just kind of have a chat. And we'll give that a go and see if that kind of works. But let's have Jess go first.
Hello, my name is Jess Carson. I'm a writer. Worked most recently on the last 3-ish seasons of The Flash, and currently in development doing some things and trying to navigate this wacky post-strike world. And looking forward to this panel.
Awesome. Thank you, Jess. Next up, let's go with Michelle.
Hi, everyone. My name's Michelle. I am also a writer. I most recently worked on The Power on Amazon, which came out last year. And previously also worked as an assistant at many places. I worked at Universal. I worked at Amblin Partners, and I was an NBC page for a bit.
So those two are, from what I can see, the only ones with really credits that are searchable. So the one Jess who introduced herself seems to be the one that has the credits of the last 3 seasons of Flash. So moving on.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Michelle. Next up, let's go to Martin.
Hello, everyone. Writer here as well, currently on PBS's Don Quixote. Like Michelle, I have an extensive amount of years as an assistant. I come from Marvel TV to Shondaland. Excited to be here.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much. And wrapping it up is Parker.
Hey, I'm Parker, also a writer, trans mass as well, and I most recently was the staff writer on season 2 of Grease: Rise of the Pink Ladies, and before that too was also an assistant at Shondaland on Bridgerton season 3, and worked on a couple of other shows like Bluff City Law and The Baker and the Beauty and Transparent. Also, sorry, I'm in the car. We're on a road trip, but here's our little puppy as well. This is Sandra. So sorry if we cut out at all.
No worries. A puppy's always welcome. I'm glad you are not driving and zooming.
No, never.
Okay, thank you. I didn't ask whenever you told me on the email. I was like, I'm sure Parker's fine. Just
I can do
let
both.
it go.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, thank you all for joining us. So, we have some questions prepared. We're just going to go through those. And then we can take questions from the audience. So audience, if you are just now joining us, as a reminder, questions need to go in the Q&A box, because if they go in the chat, I may make a mistake. So let's try to head my mistakes off at the pass, shall we? Word.
By the way, this entire video is 45 minutes. We're going to go through the first part of it and go from there. But it's interesting because a lot of what we're talking about are people who are faceless. So this gives you a little bit more insight.
Okie dokie. I also have a lot of very fun Oklahoma-isms. So apologies if a y'all and an okie dokie get said a couple times in this webinar. Anyway, all right. So just to kind of kick things off, let's lay some groundwork. For folks who don't know, in case anybody is joining us who did not know what we were going to be talking about, what is a sensitivity read?
So sensitivity reads basically if you're writing something and you may be a bit out of your depth as far as a demographic goes. You want to get someone to take a look at your script to make sure there are no tropes or stereotypes or things that may be found, unintentionally. What's the word I'm looking for? Offensive to people. So a sensitivity reader can help you by whether or not it's because they have experience with that demographic, to help you to avoid those types of things.
And to add a little bit onto what Jess just said, I think it's also to kind of counter our own biases in just the writing realm and our experiences. It's a great thing to get perspective, whether we utilize it or not in our scripts. But it's fantastic to just get multiple perspectives on the subject matter.
Yeah, I totally agree with what they have both said, and I think it basically is just it's essentially asking for fact checking from readers who might have some more lived in experience when it comes to certain topics and stories. So it's not just about, it's not necessarily just about whether or not you have nailed the identity of a certain character, but also about the situations that they might be in, war stories, immigrant stories, survival stories, all of those.
Alan, I'm going to pause it there for a second just to get your thoughts as we're going through this. This is just the beginning of a 45-minute Zoom meeting. To be clear, these are new writers that are mentoring people who've never done anything in a writers community.
So you're saying it's people with very little writing experience mentoring people with no writing experience.
I didn't want to come out and say that, but that's exactly what this is. So look, I think a writer should be able to write about anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's your job as a writer to research things. I'm going to guess that when Christopher Nolan was researching Oppenheimer, he did a little, not only did he read the book of which the Oppenheimer film is based, he did a little research on his own. Part of what you do as a writer. But what are your thoughts on what we've seen so far? And then we'll continue with the video.
I mean, the thing that bugs me the most is there's this assumption that let's take a certain label. We'll go with Asian since I'm familiar with that. There's an assumption that all Asian experiences are the same. That I've already made jokes about it twice. That being Chinese, that everything the Japanese had done was exactly what I've gone through, and so we relate because we're from Asia for some reason. When I brought up Raya and the Last Dragon, Raya and the Last Dragon is a Southeast Asian tale, but it's voiced by predominantly Chinese actors. And to say that Chinese actors know the experience of a Southeast Asian character is false. But at the same time, we are all human beings. We all experience different things. There's certain details that as different cultures have that kind of brings a little bit of nuance to it, but we all relate in that way. And this is not about the art. This is not about the human experience. This is about nitpicking and making assumptions that the Asian person here understands everything about the Asian experience and the tropes, and it's just this is just the fact that a writer would volunteer themselves in their script to something like this is maddening to me.
Well, it's just another way to police art. And I
Mhm.
think part of the thing
Well,
is
to make art uninteresting, to make art bland, because it really should be about the experience of the individual character in your art and not the cultural background. The story is not about the cultural background of that character. It's about that character and their struggle and overcoming it.
Well, a lot of it is also like, this is why I think like every person that I know who's become a writer, a working writer where they get paid to write scripts, every single one, they said there's something about once you get to your 9th or 10th script that you write, you kind of figure it out, because isn't all of this about the human experience? Why does it have to be so specific? I mean, like, this is all human experience. And as a viewer, an audience wants to be able to relate to the protagonist. The protagonist can be male, female, gay, straight, different ethnicity, different age, old, young, who cares? And I think that really, to write about the human experience, maybe you need to have had some experience.
Yeah.
We're gonna continue. We're gonna continue
Okay.
with this, and we're gonna go to your comments.
I'll make one last quick comment, but this
Please.
is what I see is this is a validation session. It's where 5 people get together and feel validated because they can look at a script and say, "Oh, hey, I can comment on it with some kind of authority," when they probably really can't. And it makes us. I'll be honest with the D-Files. It's nice to get invited on people's shows to talk about it. But again, I'm just the guy who's collecting the data and talking about it. I never worked at Disney. I'm not an animator, but I feel like I have some empathy. And quite frankly, the validation feels great, but I have to step back and realize that, I'm still me, and I'm not exactly the greatest authority on things, and I can recognize that. Okay.
Here's the other thing: if you're gonna comment on the sensitivity, are you gonna be sensitive to, say, an experience of being white, male, and pale?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just where I feel like the sensitivities only go in one direction. That is what's being implied, is the sensitivities only one way. I really notice it in a lot of films where there are parents in movies. I notice this just a lot when I'm just like, that doesn't feel authentically, like this is not what a parent would do. Or a parent, like I see that, but just because I don't know.
Or husbands and wives.
Same.
I mean,
Same.
that goes all the way back to the Flintstones. Fred Flintstone and the Honeymooners, even.
Right.
Where the female always has to take that kind of dominant position, but from a passive aggressive standpoint.
All right, let's continue with this. The video is 45 minutes. I don't know how much we'll get through, but let's
not the whole thing.
Yeah, and like Michelle was saying too, I think like sometimes the sensitivity can add the nuances to certain like situations in the story from a specific perspective that's not your own lived experience.
All right, cool. We don't necessarily all have, like, I love if we all weigh in on every question, but it's not a requirement. I just didn't want to move on before everyone had a chance to answer. So just so everybody knows. Okay, awesome. So ground rules, groundwork set. We all know what this is. Now to get into it. So this was kind of implied in y'all's answers to that first question, but what, in your opinion, writers or projects should seek out a sensitivity read? Is this something everyone needs, or are there certain topics or certain projects that lend themselves more to needing?
Well, if you're white male, the answer is yes.
Yeah, I'd say, I mean, ideally, if you have the resources to get, especially from professionals or people that have had those experiences, I mean, why not? But as the team mentioned earlier, yeah, it's, race, gender, sexuality, economic standing, communities of faith, anything that involves, I think, any like polarizing opinions or just everything has differing opinions. So, yes.
I think part of what this is, I mean, there's already a whole industry surrounding readers, right? You can get feedback from a reader. I would want feedback from someone who reads scripts, who's actually had some kind of success in the industry, had a long list of credits, and has sold projects. Not just necessarily a hired gun on a staff, but also has sold projects. So a lot of this is selling services. There's a whole industry surrounding selling services to up and coming screenwriters, whether it's seminars, classes, books. I mean, there are more screenwriting books than there are probably any other type of like category. So it kind of feels like what is being sold here is, I'll read your script and I'll give you the sensitivity reading take, and I'll find problems with your script.
Yeah, because they will be there. There will never be a perfect script.
Yeah.
Answer from Martin: yes.
My brain is jello today. I am so sorry.
No, I feel that. I'm like powering through this smoothie, but I actually haven't had any coffee yet today. So my brain is running a little bit slow. But I agree. And I think like no matter what, before you send your script out in any sort of like professional capacity, whether that's to like your manager, like your team, or even to like competitions or producers or whatever, like no matter what, you should always have someone read your script anyway, like even if it's just a friend or someone in the writing community, first of all, to do like a typo check and like, pick up on tiny things you might have missed, but also to flag things that, might bump against them in terms of like, if you do have, if your work covers a sensitive topic or it features an identity that you don't identify with, or even if you do identify with that identity, it's always good to have someone sort of chime in on whether or not they think you're telling the most accurate version of that story.
The pretentiousness is killing me here. It's like,
okie dokie, awesome sauce. So when like I'm just gonna kind of create a narrative in my head. There is a writer named Sam. I don't think anybody is named Sam in the audience. Nope, doesn't look like it. Okay, we're safe. There is a writer named Sam who has a script, has elements, story elements, character elements, whatever it may be, that does not pertain to Sam's lived experience. And Sam realizes, all right, I do not know these.
If you're writing a script, unless you are writing a script where it's exactly you, meaning the age and, the sex, your age and sex is this, and you're right. How do you even write any characters that aren't you? Isn't that I don't get it. There's a preoccupation with this. I mean, look, I've worked fast food. I worked at a Burger King, but I was so bad at the checkout counter, they moved me as a cook. Do I need to have that experience? I think it can help. I think it can certainly help if you look at like films about military, actors will go through military training, but that's different than lived experience as a writer. Alan, any thoughts?
No, I was just thinking about at Sundance, there's a David Schwimmer movie I saw. He plays a writer who's struggling to write. He writes a great script about his life. And the note that came back was, can you make the lead, which was him, a woman?
Right. All right. We're going to continue on. And we have the comments are on fire here. We're going to get to them, but we'll get through as much of this as we can here.
These things in my bones. I don't want to misrepresent I need a sensitivity read. How does one go about finding someone to help with a sensitivity read? Are there, like, can they just, is it like just blast it up on Twitter, like, hey, I need someone to read this script? Jess is like, oh, please God. What would you recommend writers do if they are needing a sensitivity read and are looking for someone to help them do that?
Dear God, Twitter. No, I feel like it can be one of those things where if you're going to be asking colleagues, if you want to start within your own circle, if you're going to be asking colleagues to take a look at your script, for example, and you have someone who is in that circle, in that lane, I feel like that's a good place to start if you're kind of uncomfortable and have never done a sensitivity read before, to be like, hey, can you also like keep an eye out for yada 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 in this read? I think that's a good way to start if you've never asked before. And if you're looking for something specific and you don't really have anyone in your circle, I think it's an okay thing to reach out and try to get some word of mouth and see if anyone knows of anyone. I think kind of start in your circle and expand if you aren't quite sure where to look. I think it's a really good start.
Maybe the old, friends of friends. Like, does anybody know somebody who knows somebody?
So you'll just have like random people, like, I need to find someone who is the group that there may be an issue with. I also think that takes it takes a little power away from the director and the casting, because you don't know, you might, as you pointed out, Alan, you might write a script and you're like, well, this would be, and also there are a lot of inconsequential roles in movies sometimes where it's just like person behind a desk at a hotel, which is always best. Cast Paul Rubens. He's very good at playing a bellman, right? Or what was it in
Pee-wee's Big Adventure? Yeah.
Pee-wee's Big Adventure. What does he play?
He plays the bellman in his
plays
movie.
the bellman. That's what it is.
In the
Not
movie
the
of his
person I
life.
know at the desk. But you know what I mean? It's a lot of inconsequential. Does it really matter? Like, whatever. You cast some roles, get cast differently. Oh, this will be maybe better as a woman sometime. That stuff does kind of work. In the script,
and again, I'll just reiterate
the story. Sorry.
Yeah, the Asian woman in the top right, when she understands the entirety of Asian experience. I don't understand the entirety of Asian experience.
Well, that's the thing, is a lot of people, and this is the thing, this because you get lumped in a group. Alan is Asian, but there are so many differences with, even with white people. Her name is Michelle Shu, spelled HSU, and she's a staff writer on The Power, which is a streaming series on Amazon that I've never heard of, but it's a recent show. So she has legit credits.
Or
but the thing is this,
Well,
all I know is this, there's a dramatic difference between someone who's Japanese and someone who's Filipino. The food is different. The cultural experience is different, and that's fine. And I actually personally like movies that lean into cultural experiences. But all of those, every single one of those, need the spine of a story.
Right. Honestly, this should be the last step of the process. Write your story, completely flesh it out. And then if you have a character who is Asian or Black, maybe go to them and say, does this resonate? Or does this, am I, maybe the use of the N-word is not good here, or, but this just annoys me so much. And the fact that, you're subjecting yourself to it, or that someone, you have the chance to write a feature film, and now you're giving it over to a group like this and letting them rip it apart. And they will rip it apart. They are paid to rip it apart. They are paid to find your racism, your inherent racism, no matter who you are, or genderism, or whatever.
Well, it's like what I've said before. I got to tweet this out or so. It's sort of like the people that look at everything and like everything is woke. This is woke. This is woke. Not everything's woke. At the same time, not everything's racist.
Yeah.
Okay. Street signs might not be racist. Traffic lights aren't racist.
Well, we're treating it like grammatical proofreading.
Right. Grammatically proofread the.
Yeah. Now culturally proofread it. Yeah, you're supposed to look for detail when it comes to commas, periods, verb, subject, verb agreement, but that doesn't apply here with culture.
Let's continue until they wrap up this topic, and there are other
Okay.
topics. We may not get to everything in this video. We might have to save it
At
for
45
Friday.
minutes. No, let's not get to everything in the video.
Yeah, I always wonder. I know for me, I've started having more of like offering this as like a consultation too, like for professional services. It seems like sensitivity.
There it is. I'm going to offer this to you as a consultation service. Look, all I can say is this. There are so many services for filmmakers after you've bought the book and done the seminar and done this and done the reading. And now this is like another thing. I kind of smell another grift. You know what I mean? Like everything from intimacy coordinator to COVID compliance officer. Is sensitivity reading another grift? And the thing is this, the person who sent this to me is a very experienced writer who was concerned that new up and coming writers are getting bad information from people with very little experience. So they're not even being mentored by people who really have real useful knowledge.
Yeah.
We'll continue here.
Readings started more in like the publishing side and more for like prose. I've also seen it. I use more like identity readings, which I've seen around as well. So, also you can always kind of Google, and there's, especially in LA, I'm sure a lot of consultants who may also specialize in a particular identity rather than trying to represent everyone as well. But what Jess was saying too, there's so many writers groups and Facebook groups that even if your own circle doesn't have it, you may be able to just be like, hey, do you know someone who has done this in the past or is doing it? Especially if you can pay someone for their time. If you don't know them personally, is always really important.
I think that's fair. I would imagine
And,
people should
does
always
he
be
take
compensated for their
PayPal,
time in
or-
some.
Wait, what'd you say?
Does he take PayPal? Or
Yeah. Okay. Going on.
way. And if it's, just like a good friend, then maybe you could get away with like, I'll take you out to dinner. But, in some way, you're asking someone to help you better your story and better your craft. And, you should show them that you respect them and their time. In some
When you sent over this question, I thought you meant like how to ask someone for a sensitivity read, not like
Also
where
fair.
to ask. Because I was like, well, like a lot of people don't just like being like, I feel like when you ask for a sensitivity read, even if it's like someone on Twitter or like whatever, like it's always, you got to do kind of the dance of like, oh, like, I finished a project I'm really excited about. Like, if you have the time and the bandwidth to like take a look, I would really appreciate that. Like, I feel like it's always about sort of like whether you're asking for like a regular, just like plain old, hey, check out my script versus like a sensitivity read. I feel like the way to do it is always like, hey, like I'm open to, notes specifically on whether you think like this character or this storyline or this plot point or whatever.
let me pause. Do you understand what she's saying?
Yeah. Alan, go ahead.
He's saying, she's proposing, what's the most sensitive way to ask for a sensitivity reading?
Okay, move it.
Whatever is
I'll
like-
say this. I'll say this before we continue. I do appreciate that they're asking questions. So on the positive side, I like this. I think that there are bigger things to be concerned about than this. And this is even more towards the end of the process, because I promise you, if you write a script on spec, meaning no one is paying you to write it, you're just writing a spec script, they're going to change a ton of stuff. They're going to change a ton of stuff, and it's all depending on, who has all the power? The people giving you the money.
Right.
The people giving you the money to make the project, whether it's an independent project or it's being produced through another place, the writer has the least power. Your job is to take your life experience and to write a story that will engage anyone and get people engaged in it. And obviously there's certain target demographics, younger audience, a YA audience, whatever. But depending on the type of film. But I feel like an engaging story is the place to start. It's like so simple to me. I don't get it. So, all right, moving on.
Okay, or if you're bumping against it or whatever. And I think, I don't know, like it's tough because I have definitely been like approached before to do sensitivity reads, and it's always kind of a weird feeling to be like, oh, you're only asking me to read this because you're worried that you might have written something racist about like an Asian character in your script. So I feel like the better way to sort of like hide the, you know, hide the medicine in the food is kind of being like, hey, I would just love to get your take on this script. And like naturally, if someone who is that identity that you wrote about like has an issue, they would probably bring it up no matter what.
I
So
want
I
to get
don't
your take because
necessarily
you're
think you have.
Asian.
Right, right.
I mean, it's
Well,
just-
think of it. You know, we'd never have beloved characters like Long Duck Dong if not for
that's
which
right.
I at the time, look, by the way, at the time when I saw that movie, 16 Candles, I didn't like that character. Okay. I didn't need someone Asian to point out that, like, because my friend in school I brought up in junior high, we would goof around my friend John Woo, not John Woo, the filmmaker. His name is John Woo. And we would sit and goof with each other all the time. And I remember seeing 16 Candles and thinking, yeah, that felt weird to me.
Yeah, but the thing is, if Long Duck Dong wasn't in that movie, there would be no Asians in that movie.
Right, right. At the
I
time.
mean, that's the double-edged sword because I want to see Asians in a movie. At the same time, well, I don't necessarily want this depiction of an Asian in a movie.
Right, right.
Because look, as much as I appreciate Mickey Rooney, it would have been nice to have seen that character being played as an actual Asian.
Right. Mickey Rooney might be the worst case, from Breakfast at Tiffany's. God, I remember as a kid, because I would watch like Ultraman, I'd watch all the Godzilla movies, whatever, and it just seems so weird to have this white dude. Like, I mean, that's at the time. So
I'm just saying Asians do better fake Asian accents than white people do.
Yeah, they do.
And that's where the sensitivity reading needed to have come in.
We'd never have gotten Iron Craw.
I know.
Here we go. All right, back to the. No, I'm okay. Let's just continue. And the chat is on fire. I promise you, we will get to your comments.
To like approach it as like I need a sensitivity read. It's more just like I need eyes on this, and I want to hear what you think.
So maybe approaching somebody and saying, "Hey, is this script racist? Yes or no?" Not a great move.
Right.
Bad move.
Well, it's almost kind of like you're telling on yourself before you like get someone to read it, like in a weird way. I don't know.
What is it? The saying, like, if you have to ask the question, you already know the answer, kind of deal.
Yeah, or like I don't know. It's like
don't do a sensitivity reading.
Huh?
I mean, they're like, well, if you have to ask, then you already know the answer. Then why are we doing sensitivity readings? Because if you have to have a sensitivity team go over your script, then it must be racist. So you might as well throw it away before you even have to do it.
I just think this all comes down to. I just think this all comes down to life experience.
Yeah, well,
it comes down to life experience.
To me, but this whole thing is just showing you how much of a downward spiral this entire discussion is. The fact that we have to do this, the fact that that if you have to have sensitivity reading, that means you're a racist. So should we even do this? And then it just becomes this circular argument that again is the reason why I keep saying that this is maddening. This is absolutely maddening.
Right. Okay, let's continue. And here we go.
I think it's because it's like if you're kind of already like putting circles and flags around it, then I feel like people are going to be like much more aware versus like if you're just like, hey, I want to know whether or not you think this is like authentic and like real. I think that the response that you might get would be different than someone who's like specifically looking for that note. I don't know.
All fair. And I do appreciate that you interpreted the question a little bit differently. That is also great.
Yeah.
It's not I didn't know what I intended.
You're at the validator now.
That's the self-deprecating white girl from Oklahoma.
Yeah, because she's the target in this whole discussion at the moment.
Yeah. Anyways,
sometimes I don't. All right, so on to the next one. What sorts of feedback can one expect, if not, from a sensitivity read or just a read in general, wherein you are dealing with character situations, et cetera, that are not your own lived experience?
I always tell people when they ask me to look out for stuff, just to prepare to be a little uncomfortable. Um, because if you are immersing yourself somewhere where, you haven't had lived experiences and you're not quite sure about it, just prepare for some hard conversations if you're not comfortable having those deep conversations or those types of conversations, because the type of feedback you can get will be ranging from small biases to very deep flawed character feedback, that your first instinct may be to take that as an indictment as on your skill as a writer, but that's not it at all. So be prepared to be a little uncomfortable and be prepared to have conversations about the why of the feedback and and be prepared to ask questions. Be prepared to ask questions if you don't understand a particular bit of feedback, because I don't necessarily think when you're getting notes from a sensitivity read, it should just be here's the feedback. I think you should be able to have these conversations and understand moving forward why notes were given. So that's one of my biggest things, is just be prepared to be a little uncomfortable.
And I love that
That's
word
how I
also,
feel,
Jess, uncomfortable, because I feel like that's the biggest part of sensitivity reads, is you're going to hear things that you probably are not going to like, but it's important to reshape in the experiences of maybe other people. I was going to give a quick example of, I was on a show once where someone wrote something that was racist, and they weren't understanding initially that it was racist, so they we had to kind of go through the process of explaining, like, hey, this word in particular, when referring to like Mexicanos, is a derogatory X, Y, and Z. But it's, I think, also being willing to learn is one of the most important things, to be able to sit there, and sometimes you have to take it on the chin. You say, yeah, that was kind of awful what I wrote. Again, it's not a maybe direct reflection of who you are as a person, because we're all constantly learning. But I think being uncomfortable but willing to accept the information that you are given, and reshaping who you are also as a person, not only just your writing.
This isn't writing advice. This is a struggle session.
Mhm.
What if you have first
Yes.
of all, if all of your characters in your script are supposed to be good, upstanding people that act perfectly all the time, that is the most boring story ever. Sometimes you have characters who are horrible human beings. They recently cut a scene from The French Connection because Gene Hackman's character is a bad cop. He's a bad person. He is racist. Are there to be no racist characters in film and TV anymore? Like, I don't get it. Like,
Well, are there to be no flawed characters in movies?
right. I mean, the whole thing, like trying to remake this is why this stuff is so boring. Anyways, we're a third of
We
the
got
way
to end
through this.
on this one.
I don't know how much more of this I can take.
Yeah,
I'd like to
let's
go to your comments
let's
and
end it
questions.
soon.
I think what we're gonna do, we're gonna end it there for now.
Yeah,
We're gonna end it there for now, but we're gonna go to your comments and questions.
and our entire audience breathed a sigh of relief.
Yeah, we're gonna go to your comments and questions here. We're gonna start with super chats, but I'll end on this. These are the people, these are the writers of the future. This is the future of entertainment. You just saw.
Yeah, and they're being introduced bad habits right from the start.
I think a good way to go about it is to not give a shit. And if you're going to get notes, the better notes are probably going to come from people, that are giving you money. Not the ones you're paying money to be told that you did it, that you need to be sensitive. And the thing is, maybe live a little life before you embark on writing a story. I think the best stuff, I'm sorry, we've never done this before, but if there was a survey of the best scripts that are written, usually written by older people who have life experience. First time scripts out of the gate that are good are rare. And I'll leave it there. Any final thoughts from you, Alan?
Yeah. No, actually, I highlighted some comments, and that'll get me into.
We'll get through it. But what did you think of what your daughter said in the video?
Oh yeah, she needs to come home and bring honor to the family.